On this episode of Peephole Pictures, we're looking at Blazing Zippers from 1976.
Well, Doctor, I keep having these strange dreams every night. Very erotic dreams about cowboys and Western he-men. And they're doing strange things to me, like tying me up and fucking me in the mouth and up the ass.
Go on. And then what?
There's one guy in my dream, wow. He's my perfect cowboy lover. Oh, God, he gets me all worked up because I'm so horny. I wake up sweating and loving my body. Is that normal?
Yes, under the circumstances.
But, Doctor, the only way I can get back to sleep is to masturbate.
Sounds very normal to me.
But, Doctor, what really bothers me is that I enjoy it. But the next day I feel so guilty.
It's perfectly normal to masturbate, Melissa, and to enjoy it. There's no reason to feel guilty. But you do have a problem. And I have the solution to that problem. It's simple. You need to get laid. And not just anyone will do. You need a cowboy, a Western man. You see, Melissa, it's important to live out your dreams and your fantasies.
Directed by Boots McCoy, this film comes out 2 years after Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles, the title being a riff on that, and you think the film would be kind of a riff on that as well. We have a Western kind of setting in a way, a lot of like cowboys in this. And it's not really that, it's really just kind of a name only. I mean, if you're doing kind of a riff on a riff, you know, Blazing Saddles being a satire or a parody of a lot of Westerns, it's kind of hard to do that again, which I guess you could do something like that for a film like this, but it's really just a name only. You have this, which I don't know if the name originally was, I don't know if this film was originally called that or not, or if it was just, you know, from that film or not. Either way, we have Blazing Zippers, like I said, directed by Boots McCoy. We have Sonya Spizer in the lead role on this. I think she's credited as Melissa Jennings. She is the main one in this. She is living alone in her house or apartment, whatever, and she's having these dreams about these cowboys. You know, the first scene that she has with Rocksteady and Ken Scudder, she's being assaulted. And then, by contrast, she has another dream with Jeff Lyle, who is very caring with her. You know, she's really attracted to these cowboy sorts of types. But because even with the first dream, you know, she's clearly into it. You know, she wakes up and she's still very aroused by the whole thing. So from there, you know, and with a film like this, because it is so short and it's so light on plot, when I say so short, I mean this is an hour tops. You know, some of the films I've talked about on the show, they are at least 65, 7 minutes. I mean, IMDb lists this as an hour too, but I mean, the version that I watched, I think, was just about an hour at least, give or take. So, I mean, you can basically say the whole thing as is, because she goes to her doctor, her psychiatrist, who, you know, is also a bit of a pervert. Actually, let me get rid of that. He is a pervert because the first time we see him, the psychiatrist, or the therapist, I should say, is played by John Seeman. And, you know, he's just a hornball. He's having sex with Suzanne French, and he's like, oh my gosh, I got so horned up that I got a client coming in, and she's telling him, she's like, I've been having these dreams, you know, I don't know what it means. I'm being with these cowboys. I'm, you know, at first I'm being assaulted, and then I'm the one who is like, you know, getting with this other cowboy. And, you know, I'm taking it that John Seeman doesn't really have much of a medical degree, because his advice, being a therapist, being a hornball, he says, take the month off. You got to go have sex with a cowboy. You know, don't know how he got to that conclusion, but that's all right, you know. So that's what she does, although I feel like it probably wouldn't take a month. I mean, I feel like it would probably take less time than that, which is kind of what happens. But that's basically what the film is. You know, after a certain point, maybe about 40 or so minutes in, maybe less, the last 20 minutes or so take place at this rodeo, which is a lot of, I don't know if it's stock footage or if it was footage shot previously, because we'll cut to this like rodeo happening, and then we'll cut to her like seeing all these cowboys, you know, going around. So I would assume that they either my guess is they already had this footage, or or if they did shoot this, it wasn't at the same time, because you know, you see, whenever you see footage like this, it's very handheld, looks very like, you know, you're watching from a distance, but then when you get to the scenes with Sonya Spizer, whose character, I should say, is she plays Melissa in this, and you know, when they cut back and forth, it's kind of, I mean, it's noticeable that, you know, it's not all at once. But anyways, so in this, yeah, I mean, it's her trying to fulfill these fantasies. We get the idea that maybe she's sort of sexually deprived because she's by herself. You know, she doesn't have anyone in her life. I mean, we don't get a whole lot of time with her at her apartment. We just get the first scene early on when, you know, she's at home, she's in bed, she's really getting off on these fantasies. And so, you know, the conclusion of her getting with the cowboy, it's not very hard to draw the line there, but that's what she does. Although it is kind of funny, though, because, okay, so she goes to this cowboy bar, or this sort of Western-themed bar, and, you know, and she's like, all right, you know, I want to get with a cowboy, because, you know, the John Seeman says, go get some cowboys, and she's like, all right, I'll do it. But she goes to this bar, man, and instead of going for a guy, she immediately goes for this chick, Yvonne Green, credited as Joni Bond in this one, and, you know, that's great and all, but it's sort of like, you figure that if she's in a place like this, a lot of, you know, muscular kind of guys, a lot of very masculine cowboy types, you figure that she'd go for one of them, and it's not immediately that she goes for something like that. So it's just kind of funny, is all. She has these sort of, she's having these fantasies, she has every opportunity to, you know, seduce one of these guys, and she goes after a girl, and, you know, it's just kind of like, all right, you know. But anyways, with that, I mean, it's sort of like kind of what I was talking about with Young and Naughty a little bit, which is that once that main sort of taking off point is there, I do think the film kind of peters out a bit. When I was talking about Young and Naughty, is that you have a character in that who's going through her own kind of sexual awakening, and she's, you know, going after, in that case, going after basically anyone around, and then from there, just, you know, her kind of discovering, you know, her kind of being with these people, and here it kind of does the same thing. We have, I mean, she's in, Sonya Spizer is in almost every scene in this. There's only, I think, one or two that she's not in. There's the one with John Seeman and Suzanne French in The Office, and then there's one at the end with Yvonne Green and Carl Regal. And I gotta say, at least with the actors in this, I didn't recognize a whole lot of the performers in this. But I gotta say, I think Sonya Spizer is actually a really solid lead in this. She's got a very natural kind of beauty to her. You know, she seems like an actress who is, you know, not too dolled up, seems very natural, and I think she's one of the, like, a naturally, you know, beautiful woman in this. And she only did, I think, a couple other films with this. This is credited as her first film, and, you know, IMDb is always kind of tricky to have accurate credits for any of these films. I had talked to Rick Marks privately. I was asking him some questions when I was doing my episode on roommates, and I asked him some questions about the credits on IMDb, and he told me that a lot of those were not accurate, and there were some that he had worked on that aren't even on IMDb. So you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, whether or not this was her first film or not. I don't know. She only has a couple credits on here, and this is the only one of her works I've seen. Although she has done the new erotic adventures of Casanova, and then she was apparently in Casanova 2 from '82, in a small role in both those apparently. So I think this is the only one, to my knowledge, that she is not only the lead, but primarily credited, because I mean, I'm looking here, and it's just a, you know, uncredited or credit only as Sonny Spicer. So I don't know. She's a fascinating actress. I think she actually is very solid in this. And even Boots McCoy, it was a director I tried looking up a little bit about, and I really couldn't find much on him anyways. This is, again, credited as his first, this is credited as his second film. His first film was one called Surfer Girls from 1976. And interestingly enough, the film opens with New California Pictures Presents, and I couldn't find anything on New California Pictures. I tried to kind of cross-reference whether it was his company or whether this was a one-off, because, I found a listing for the poster that just said California Pictures Productions, because it's kind of a generic name that it's hard, it was difficult to find really anything on it. You look up California Pictures or New California Pictures, and you're just going to get pictures of California. So I don't really know what the deal is on this. I've never seen a film with New California Productions on there, unless it was just his. I have absolutely no idea. Anyways, so here, as it's going along, the actual erotic scenes themselves are pretty well shot, I gotta say. There's one scene in particular that I thought really kind of stood out, which is when Melissa is at the cowboy bar and she gets intimate with Mick Jones, who he's like the janitor. He's just watching there the whole time, and she's getting intimate with Yvonne Green. And they're like, come on in. He's like, okay, So that was a well directed scene. Honestly, I think it's all pretty well directed in here. The scenes themselves, they take up the majority of the film, which overtakes the plot, but each one doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't go on and on. Where some of these you watch, where you just start spacing out. But here, I thought they were all pretty well shot, even early on. The first couple of scenes when they have, the first dream sequence, and then even the second one when you have, let me get the actor here so I actually can give credit. When you have Jeff Lyle in this, there's a really good shot in this because where they're in like a black kind of room. It's a dream sequence and all that, and there's a silhouette of him with the cowboy hat and this kind of fog behind him. It's sort of like that sort of hazy quality that you see in a lot of films where you have a dream sequence. So there's almost this sort of smoky kind of lighting to it, or the smoky kind of look to it in a way, or I guess the contrast is lighter. I don't really know how exactly you would say it, but it's sort of like when you watch like The Devil and Miss Jones and you get these sequences that feel kind of like otherworldly. They feel like something on the camera is making it look a lot lighter in contrast to the other scenes in that, and that's how it feels here. But as it's going along, all those scenes, they're shot well. I think if that's what you're looking for, then I would say this is, in that regard, a pretty well put together film. It's an hour, it's short, it moves along at a fair pace, but for me, I think when you get to the point, it takes a little bit to get to the full picture of it all. Because once you get to that point where John Seeman is telling her, you got to go out and you got to get with a cowboy, from there it kind of peters out a little bit for me, especially when you get to the rodeo sequences. I thought that went on for a little while. Those were the scenes in the film that I thought was when I started to kind of space out a little bit. Because I think when you have something like this, it's almost like you kind of want to get to that point where the initiative to go out and to find that sort of sexual awakening should probably be in the first half, I would say. Whereas here, it takes a little while to get to that point. Whereas you can have it be like the first, I would say 10-15 minutes, honestly, where you can have that point. It's kind of what I was talking about with Lady Dynamite, where you have that scene early on where she realizes what's going on, and she's like, all right, I'm going to go on this journey, I'm going to go on this adventure, and I'm going to do what I want to do with this. Because here, I think because it's shorter, you get the idea about, halfway through. You get the idea at a certain point where it's like, okay, there's really not much left to walk away with this from. There's no sort of look on like, why she's having a dream where these cowboys are assaulting her and then a cowboy is being intimate with her. Not that I'm looking for any kind of psychological background on this. It's just interesting that was an idea that they bring up that they don't really go through with it with. Other than, most likely it's like, okay, we want to have these certain kinds of sequence, and we want to have a check mark where you have an assault sequence, you have like a bondage sequence, and that's fine. I'm not looking for any kind of real sort of psychological look into why this character is having these repeated dreams. One thing I thought was funny as well with this, you have John Seeman who's playing the therapist, and he's such a hornball that once she tells him that she's having these cowboy fantasies, the man just happens to have a cowboy getup and is like ready to have sex with her, and she's creeped out. She's like, what is going on here? it's one of the few, I think, comedic sequences in this that actually works pretty well. I really like his performance in this. He's playing such a hornball. But ironically enough, for a film called Blazing Zippers, there's not a lot of comedy in it. There is a little bit here and there when you have that scene with John and you have Suzanne French. That is the only scene that kind of, or I should say even John's character, those are the only parts that are intentionally comedic. In a way, we were going for a comedic angle. Whereas I think you really could have kind of played that up more. You could have made something where, you have comedy in this, but you also have this character sort of coming to terms with her sexuality, where she's coming to terms with the fantasies that she's having. I think there's a lot you could have actually done with this. Because as it is, it's pretty straightforward. It's not very comedic. It does its own thing. When you have a title like Blazing Zippers, I think when you expect something more like that, it doesn't go through with it. It's a little disappointing in that regard. But as it is, man, I mean, when I initially had watched this and it was done, because I was starting to get disinterested in the last 20 minutes or so, I was like, I wasn't really crazy about that. But as I thought about this more, I was thinking that, okay, it's nice and short. All of the love scenes are pretty well shot, I gotta say. I think the editing is actually pretty good in this. They don't linger too long on them. If that's what you're looking for, man, then I think this is one that is pretty underrated. I gotta say, I don't think this is a great film or anything. I don't think it's one that I would be overly recommending because I like my adult films to have that balance of plot to the love scenes. And when it's too much of the love scenes, that's either going to work for you or it's not. And in these cases, because I'm looking for more of a narrative, this one didn't totally grab me. But as it is, I mean, it's pretty well put together, honestly. It's straightforward. The plot is there. But if you're just looking for these scenes, I mean, I'd say go for it, man. As for the availability of this, I don't really know. The version that I watched was ripped, was ripped from a VHS. There's some tracking issues a couple of times, which is fine. I don't know if this has a DVD. The only place I could find it that might have something is on Adult Empire. It says Blue Panther Presents. Now, I don't know. I couldn't find anything on Blue Panther. I don't know. Again, I didn't really do that much research, truthfully. But I didn't see a DVD copy for sale. I didn't even see a VHS copy for sale, so I don't know. I mean, you can easily find this online to watch, but as to own, I honestly have no idea. It's kind of hard to come across some of these, and I don't know availability-wise. But either way, it's not bad. I think if this was restored, with a new release, I would pick it up. I'd be very interested to kind of hear more about why a lot of the cast in this didn't really do a whole lot, because it didn't really do a whole lot after this or before, because I'm looking at the cast here and I don't recognize a lot of the actors or actresses in this. I think the one that stood out was probably Suzanne French, who was in The Other Side of Julie from 1978, which I'll do an episode on at some point, but she was also in the new erotic adventures of Casanova when I was talking about Sonya Spizer before. So a lot of the cast I wasn't super familiar with in terms of, I looked them up and some had done a lot-ish, some really hadn't. So I don't really know. I really couldn't tell you on this. But either way, yeah, if that's what you're looking for are well-shot scenes or well-shot love scenes. I should also say, one of the things that did make me kind of smirk was that this dude has a Psychology Today magazine, and it's just the cover, and, Sonya Spizer opens it up, and it's just a bunch of naked girls. It's like, I don't even know why he was trying to hide it, man, because, he immediately just comes back out, and he's wearing this cowboy getup, But either way, it's not bad. I think if that's what you're looking for are these kinds of these well-shot scenes, go for it. If you're looking for more kind of plot, you're not going to really find it here. Not bad either way. I'm very kind of middle of the road on this, but I would say check it out if that's what you're interested in. But that'll do it for this episode, guys. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Blazing Zippers, 1976.